You don't learn f-stops and become a great photographer. It's not relevant. You have to learn f-stops, but that's not how you become better. You become better by becoming more self-aware, more in tune with who you are, and again, this idea coming back to what you love, what you really want to do, and standing your ground on it and just doing what you want to do.
Welcome to the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I'm Angela Nicholson, and I'm the founder of SheClicks, which is a community for female photographers. In these podcasts, I talk to women in the photographic industry to hear about their experiences, what drives them, and how they got to where they are now. This episode is with Margaret Soraya, who is a wedding photographer and a workshop and retreat leader who lives on the Isle of Harris in the Outer Hebrides. Margaret teaches others to find their voice and believes in the power of retreat and quietness to revitalise and replenish. Hi Margaret, thank you so much for joining me today on the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you for asking me.
I've never been to the Isle of Harris, and it sounds like a wonderful place. So I wondered if you could just kind of paint a picture of where you are at the moment.
Yes, of course, yes. So I live in Geocrab, which is in the bays of Harris, which is the east side of Harris. So my house is very remote and very lovely. I've just come in from a walk with the dog, and we tend to just walk down by the shoreline and over the crofts. And it's just wonderful every day that I'm here now. I moved here in February. Every day is like I wake up and think, what a wonderful place. I just absolutely love it. It's very remote, not for everybody, but I am completely and totally at home here. So it's amazing.
That does sound perfect. Okay, so I like to start these podcasts by finding out about how you got into photography or how you first realised that photography was going to be your career.
Yeah, it's a funny one because I studied photography at university many years ago, and I didn't finish my degree. I left, and then I put that on the camera for quite a long time. I was a little bit disheartened. So when I had my children, I've got two boys. When Cameron was born, I decided that I was going to literally just start up a photography business. It was very random in a way, but also I was at home. We needed some extra income, and I thought, well, can I go back to my photography roots and become a professional? So it was very much a business decision rather than a creative decision at that point. So that was 20 years ago, or 19 or 20 years ago. And I started my business that long ago. I've been a wedding commercial. I've done architecture, I've done travel, I've done all sorts of what you name it. I've done it over the years to build that side of the business. Mm-hmm. But more recently, I decided about 5 years ago that I really wanted to get back more and more into the landscape, which is where my heart really lies. So that process of being able to do that, I started to leverage almost the wedding photography, which began to flourish once I started coming over to the Isle of Harris and photographing weddings on beaches, because that's what I love. I love the beaches, I love outdoors. So that the weddings were kind of I was leaning towards that, and then I was shooting over here and I was shooting landscapes and building that up because of that high need to earn. It was my day job. My wedding photography was my day job. So I couldn't just say, okay, I'm not doing any wedding photography anymore. I'm going to be a landscape photographer, because that's not so easy. So I sort of transitioned into that about 4 years ago, and 5 years ago I started Quiet Landscapes, teaching, leading workshops, and which have kind of moved into retreats and a bit more creative now. And I also have sold, exhibited work as well. So my life in the photography industry has been, it's been 20 years in different formats. I'm now coming to a place where it's becoming more and more in line with what I want to do. So that's where I am just now. That was a really brief history. I don't know if that helps.
No, that's great. What was it about the course that you were doing that made you stop it? Were you disillusioned with what you were being taught or the way you were being taught?
It was criticism, definitely. It was very, very simple. Critiques, bad critiques. I was also very quiet. I was very unconfident in myself. I was working very intuitively. I was actually photographing in the water at that time. So when I was 20 years old, I was photographing exactly like I'm photographing today. But I was doing it intuitively back then without the thought of what should I be doing, what's going to be pleasing the tutors, what's going to be pleasing, what's going to be marking well. I was just doing it. And that was a great thing. That should have been embraced by everybody around me, but it wasn't. It was criticised. And it broke me, I think, from being probably the lack of confidence, the lack of ability to express myself. And certainly now looking back at that, I knew that was simply because I'm an introvert and I hadn't yet found that confidence and that ability to say, look, I know what I'm doing. This is work that I want to produce. This is coming from my heart, and to stand up for myself. So I just kind of crumbled. And it's led me to have a very, very much a sort of awareness that when we critique or judge other people's work, you've got to be very careful. And this need for positive encouragement is very high, because when we produce work, any work, whether it's any sort of artwork, it comes from your heart, it comes from within you. And if somebody simply turns around to say that's, puts you down and say that's nonsense, it can really hurt.
Yeah.
And it doesn't help. I don't think it helps. So if you can come at like a critique from a more positive angle, and if you can teach from a way of exploring why that person's doing it, why was I photographing in the sea? I was going in my surfboard into the sea and taking my camera, and nobody stopped to ask me why. Where did that come from? Is that part of your story? Is that part of something that's you, that you love? That all they saw was pretty images that they didn't understand and criticised that. So yes, it's had a profound effect on me, I think, because it stopped me for 15 years. Was it 15 years here, maybe? It's stopped me photographing, and also, but it's also now I look back on it, it's been a positive thing, because it's led me to understand a little bit more about how we should treat other people who are looking to us for help and advice.
Yeah, I think the power of positive enforcement is incredible, actually. You say something good to somebody, it can change their whole day, it can change their whole outlook.
Yeah.
Thinking about it now, I've made career decisions on the basis of a one line from a manager. They've said something positive, and it's really sort of engaged me, and I've thought, I'm good at this.
Yeah.
And that's all I needed to know, and I was off doing things, and it can have a major impact on you.
Absolutely. It's really, really important. So I think that we should all bear that in mind as we go in and put our images into competitions or go for critiques. You have to be very careful who you hand that to. I think that's all I'm saying. Be careful who you allow to judge your work.
Yes, because we're often, I think, much more aware of the negative things that have been said. We could have 10 people in a room, 9 of them say something really positive and one person says something a bit negative. And what's the one thing we walk out of the room remembering? It's a real tough one. Absolutely.
It's hard, isn't it? Yeah. And I still do that. I mean, I'm still relevant today. We're human. That's how it is. We want to succeed. We want to do well. But I think there's a real power in that, as you say, that absolutely, said it absolutely right there. That positive encouragement is worth so much.
Do you think that your lecturers were trying to push you in a more commercial direction? Was it sort of, they couldn't see where you would sell your work or how it would develop into a business, so they were trying to push you in a different direction? Do you think that was their kind of driving force?
No, because my coursework was actually called Photography in the Arts. So it was very artistic, almost too artistic. That was the problem. They were going for this kind of grungy kind of, I don't even know how to explain it. But I was producing fairly beautiful images, and that wasn't seen to be the thing to do at the time. So they were. So, for instance, I went to a critiques, and this is one of the ones that always stands out in my mind. And it was an image of the Highlands of Scotland, which I'd just fallen in love with a loch and everything. And it was just completely torn apart. And I'd presented it as a self-portrait, which was quite okay. It was a little bit edgy, but I felt like that was me. I felt that was where I was most at home, and that was where I was happy. So that was an image of me as a person. So they totally tore that apart. And then they went on to the next person who had, I understand tearing that apart, because I was supposed to take a picture of myself, that's what I was supposed to do, but I didn't. And so that's fair enough. But then they went on to the next person who put an image of a building, which was like a derelict building and she went about it the same way, but in a different way, in a more sort of acceptable uni way. And she was praised for it. So it wasn't the fact that I wasn't in the picture. You know, it seemed it was okay when she did it, but when I did a pretty picture, it wasn't so. So, you know, I just
Right.
sort of think that at the end of the day, these people are just people, you know, and it's just their view of what's right and what's wrong. And we can judge images technically, we can judge images emotionally, but at the end of the day, you have to really be careful with who that person is and what they're looking for, because we all respond differently to images.
Yeah. So why wedding photography?
Very, very simple, because I was looking for something to earn money from. So, I mean, I think one of the things that isn't talked about so much is this kind of the business side of things, and I find it interesting. At the time, I had a baby and a toddler, and we were living in a council house, and we needed an extra income. And I was trying to figure out how I was going to do this with a baby and a toddler. So I made a website, and I said, right, okay, I'll do everything. I'll do nursery photos, I'll do passport photos, anything. I put them all on there. And wedding photography was just one of the ones that, it's just, for me, I got good at it very quickly. I was in an area where there was a little bit of demand for it, and it pays well. So all those things came together, and that's the thing that came out of this website that I put up. Well, okay, what am I going to do more of? I'm going to do more of the thing that earns me the money the fastest and I'm best at. So I did, you know, I'm good with people as well. So I suppose that's another element to it. And it just flourished, and because it flourished, I just did more of it, and it became bigger and bigger. So, you know, it's quite a factual question. It was just what went well, basically. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was a business decision, as you said.
Absolutely. And actually, I still shoot weddings to this day. And although that business has, I've made it smaller consciously, I still do them. So, and it's you know, it's part of my life. And what I've done now is I've adapted them to my lifestyle. So I've adapted them to, I'm always looking at like, what is it that's in line with me as a person? So what do so this concept of values in life. So what do you value in life? What do you love in life? And where do you live? You know, what do you like to be around? It's really important if you're thinking about what do I want to do photography, to think about, well, who are you as a person? And that's going to fit you better if you do the things that align with your values. So when I was shooting like big, fabulous, expensive weddings that were full of, you know, big numbers and fancy locations and whatnot, and fancy shoes, and you know, you get the picture. I just didn't like it, because that's not part of my life. That's not me. I spend my days barefoot on a beach, and I don't value commodities. I don't value anything I value being outdoors and being in nature. So what I'm trying to say is I now shoot weddings, basically elopements on beaches, and with people who love the outdoors, and maybe they don't even have a pair of shoes, they might have a pair of wellies, and we get on well, and I enjoy it. So I've just adapted. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to be able to do that.
Yes, but it takes a little bit of life experience, I think, to get to that point, because you don't know what you don't like necessarily until you try something. Particularly if you're building up a business, you thought, oh yeah, you know, if I could do that destination wedding or this and that, and then you start doing it. Yeah, great, I'm doing it, and then you think, God, I hate it. You know, but you've tried it at least to find that out.
Absolutely, it's like experimentation. It's like with any sort of photography, isn't it? You've got to sort of try a few things to realise that you don't like them. I think. It also comes as you get older as well. You start to realise that the things that you think you should be doing, or the things that society upholds as good things, like maybe just fitting in, I suppose. Because we spend a lot of our lives fitting in to society and doing things like that we should be doing. We're buying the house, and then we're getting this, and we're getting a good car because it looks good to have a good car, and you know, all of these things, and we sort of go on autopilot for quite a lot of our lives, and then. There's a sort of statistic that around about 35, we you know, you can often turn around and go, where did I go? You know, what happened to me, and what I love, and what's real to me. I've just kind of, you know, we spent all of these years fulfilling what society and what our family and friends think we should be doing, and it happens to quite a lot of people. It certainly happened to me. So I was speaking from experience, and turned around and went, "Oh my goodness, who am I? This is not in line with me as a person." And often that comes with a jolt in life. And again, I'm talking from experience, because that was when everything fell apart for me at 35, and it was the worst of times. It was an absolutely dreadful time of life for me, because my marriage. Well, I left my marriage, but in doing so, I left everything behind. So I walked away from literally everything, and we had to leave the house and literally everything that we owned. So I had 2 young boys at this point. They were like 5 and 7, and we had to go and start again. But it also opened up this new life for me, where I began to go, actually, that wasn't right for me. I had to leave that behind in order to go. I wouldn't be living here today in Harris, living this amazing life, and so happy, and so like me, if I hadn't let go of the things that weren't right for me. I think that sometimes I don't know where I'm going here with this. I think it's to do with the sort of photography that we do. Sometimes, my point is that sometimes we go along with things because it's acceptable, because it's kind of like it's the in thing, or it wins a competition, and we stop listening to our hearts, and we stop doing the things that we're really truly connected to. And as you say, we have to experiment with things and then leave them behind, and then go with the thing that you absolutely feels right and you love. And this idea of self-awareness, I suppose, is the big thing. That's the hard thing, isn't it? It's like, I often say to people when they say, I don't know what to photograph, it's like, well, what do you love? And so many people don't know what they love in life.
Yeah, that is quite a challenge, actually, because when you said that, I instantly thought, I love the coast. But then I was thinking, actually, that's quite a long way away from here. I'm in South Oxfordshire, so it's about as far as where you can get from the coast in the UK.
Yeah.
But rivers and forests as well. So that is an interesting question, actually. I think if you had to sit down and write those sort of things that you really love.
Yeah.
But I think you're right when you say about having a jolt or some sort of break in your life, or, pause in your life where you have opportunity to rethink things, because you need a bit of space to sort of process all this information and where you are, where you'd like to be. And I think actually, I hate to be the one that brings up COVID, but the pandemic did give that pause to a lot of people to sort of think through what they were doing. And, there's a lot of people who sort of said after the pandemic, actually, you know what, I don't want to be in the office 5 days a week. And if you don't like that, then I'll go and get another job, and maybe they only go in 2 or 3 days a week now, or not at all. But, a lot of people changed how they work, how they operate.
Yes.
As a result of that. So there's that kind of space, I guess, to think about things.
Yeah, we all need space, don't we? We forget, don't we, that we need that time. We need time to think and to consider and to create. We need time to feel inspired first as well. So things do happen in our lives that creates that space, and definitely COVID was one of those times. Bad or good, different for everybody, but it was a little bit of a jolt for everyone.
Yes. I might be wrong, but you seem to have moved around quite a bit. I think you've lived in a few places in Scotland. I think somewhere I saw you mentioned living in Cornwall for a while. I think you grew up in Manchester. Were any of your moves, I know going to Harris was purely or mainly because of your, photography and good for your soul, but were any of your other moves purely for photography, for your business?
No, unfortunately. Unfortunately, they weren't. But maybe I'm maybe different to other people in my life path, and I'm quite open about this, but all the moves that I've had have not been good moves or positive moves. They've been moves out of necessity. And my marriage wasn't a good one. And so it just led us to have to move a lot. And then when it broke up, me and the boys had to move quite a bit, just from rented property to rented property, unfortunately. So the move to Harris for me is quite marked, because it's the first one that I've chosen for myself. It's the one that I've had the vision for best part of 14 years. I've wanted to come over here, and I've waited it out until my children left home. And then they left home in September, and I was like, right, I'm doing it. I'm going to do it somehow or the other. So it's like, it's almost like coming home. And I think sometimes we can see people, can't we? Sometimes we look at people and go, oh, Margaret's just moved out to Harris. Isn't she lucky? Well, if you look at my past, and this is really the first home I feel like I've had, and the first time that I've had the time for myself to be creative and to be outdoors and to live almost. And it's been hard earned, and I've worked hard, very, very hard for it. And it wasn't easy actually to find a house here either. So I'm very, very grateful for it, and it's going to lead to new work, new directions, and hopefully a better health and happiness. And so I suppose to answer your question, none of it was to do with the photography or the work. It was always, it was always a necessity, and I always just adapted around it. And one thing, just to say one thing, I'm so grateful to photography, wedding photography in particular, because that definitely saved me in a lot of ways. Because when I suddenly was a single parent, I found that I could support the children without having to go on benefits and live in a council house. So, wedding photography was just there for me, and I could look after the children, and, it's a lot of juggling, but it was there, and the business, I could build it up and continue. And so I just think it's just been such a gift for me. I'm so grateful to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. A lot of people, when they think about wedding photography, they may be keen photographers, but then the thought of doing a wedding they find really stressful. They wouldn't want to do it because of all the responsibility. But have you ever felt the burden of that, or do you just enjoy doing it, or is it kind of very much I know what I'm doing, and it's a process that you go through?
Oh no, the big weddings are really tough, really tough. They're like the biggest, hardest training you can get as a photographer. I really think, anybody that kind of, there used to be this thing where you're just a wedding photographer, but my goodness, some of the situations that you're thrown into, you just have to deal with. Different lighting, you have to get to know your kit and the technicals in instant without even having to look at the camera. You need to know what you're doing. So I think hats off to all those wedding photographers that do these bigger weddings. For me, it was always there's always massive pressure on the day. But I know over the years I knew I'd get it. I've never made any massive mistakes, and everyone's always been really happy. But the amount of stress that's involved, and the physical stress as well, of a 12-hour wedding, of walking around with cameras and not getting fed and not getting water and things like that, all of those things, we all know it. Really tough industry to be in. But certainly that's why I've moved to elopements now. I just do 1 hour coverage on the beach, and so it's just great.
Sounds perfect.
It's brilliant. I've had to move away from it because I don't think I could have kept doing that for sort of. So I do some big weddings, and I'll always manage, but it's maybe not the stress levels that I want to be at anymore. So the beach elopements are far nicer and more pleasant. So, but yeah, it's a tough game, wedding photography.
Oh yes, I think so. I'm always very interested because after you've been doing it for 5 or 6 years, and however long it takes you to really get. So you, like you say, your kit, how to deal with anything that's thrown at you. That's fine. Okay, you've got each individual day to get through, and you don't quite know what's going to come up. But when it comes up, you know how to deal with it. But that first wedding, or those first few weddings, good grief, what's the stress like there? How did you get through that? Did you have any, doubts and think, right, that's it, I can't do this?
Oh yeah, all the time. Definitely all the time. That was hard. It's just a build up of confidence, isn't it, and knowledge. And I think one of the things that we forget in any genre of photography is that practice. The practice is key. You get better inevitably. Well, hopefully, inevitably, you'll get better with anything that you do repeatedly, and you learn from your mistakes, don't you? And so over the years, it just got easier because I knew exactly what I was doing. The first few were just awful, but the images weren't awful. I don't think the images were awful. So, but it's that learning curve, and the longer anything goes on, the more that you practice, the better that you get. And I think we should always remember that, actually, because sometimes people come to you and they say, "Well, I'm not very good." Well, it's like, "How long have you been doing it?" 2 weeks. Well, keep going, it will get better.
Yes. And the other thing I find is, like, people say, "Oh, I can't," I've been shooting weddings for 2 years, that's fine, blah blah blah. I've been asked to do a newborn shoot and I'm really worried and I've never done this in my life. Well, yes, of course you're going to be nervous because you haven't done that before. But, being a wedding photographer is very different. Don't expect, okay, you know how to use your kit, you know what an aperture is and shutter speed, but it's a new area to learn, but you wouldn't automatically be expected to know that.
Exactly. And I do think that if you can be a wedding photographer, you can photograph anything. Honestly, I really do believe that. I think that with that
Yes.
with that training, so you can do anything. You can do any sort of photography. Once you start to get to grips with light and your kit, it's just once you can get the kit learning and out the way, so you know what you're doing, and then you can understand light, then it's all the same. You can apply the principles of that to any type of photography, and then there's just the sort of the handling the parents would be the thing, the newborn. So you've got the ability to deal with people as well.
Yeah, it's just dealing with the baby itself. Where do you put it and how do you prop it up? And it's awake now. It's a whole different thing. But yes, I know what you mean. It is a massive,
not easy,
a very effective training ground. I think weddings, like you say, there's so many different variables.
Oh yeah, totally.
As I say, someone I don't know Harris at all. So are there any other professional wedding photographers or other professional photographers on Harris?
There might be another photographer in Lewis, another couple of photographers in Lewis. Harris, I actually don't think there are any wedding photographers. There's one in Lewis that I know well, but it's Lewis. And Lewis and Harris are joined, but Harris is its own island at the bottom. It's quite small.
Right.
So I'm probably the only wedding photographer. There were a few there's a few commercials. Yeah, there's not many people here. So so when I'm umming and ahhing about that, I think it's just a lack of people.
Because the reason I ask is, often business advice is these days seems to be to niche down, to find your niche and really excel in that. So by moving somewhere like Harris, if you've almost got exclusivity there, then that's a good thing for your business. But obviously you also have to attract people into that area for weddings or elopements. I mean, maybe it just sells itself these days.
Well, it's been a funny year, actually, because I think over the past, many years, for the past 10 years, it's been very busy here for weddings. And then this year it suddenly dropped a little bit. And I was like, I wonder why that is. But I think it's just tourism. So people are going abroad again. So there is those outside influences. So obviously it's a small area. So it's not like being in Edinburgh or Glasgow, where there's a million weddings going on and you've got competition. There's literally, X amount of weddings on Harris, and that's really it. But I believe in niching down. I believe in finding the thing that you really connect to, and that's how you stand out. Otherwise, you're just competing with everybody else doing the same thing. So I do believe that. I do believe that's really helped me, definitely to get through over the years, and also kind of evolving's a good thing at the start, and this process again, coming back to that self-awareness of what is it that you do well, why do you do it well, and how do you put that through into if you've got your website and your social media, and who are you, and why would people want to buy you almost? I think there's a million good wedding photographers, and I think there's a million better wedding photographers than me, yet somebody still might choose me because of who I am, or my personality, or how it comes through. So I think it's really important to be that bit of awareness about yourself and how you put that through in your business. It's super important.
Yeah, I guess you think about the people you're drawn to, and they are automatically like to be drawn to you as well. So it's kind of market yourself towards them. But now you also do workshops and you run retreats. How did you introduce those two elements? What triggered you to want to do that, I suppose?
It was a desire to get more into the landscape. So the weddings were I was doing about, 50 weddings a year. And I was going, well, okay, I want to drop that and be more.
It's quite a lot.
Yeah, it was quite a lot. Yeah, it was quite. There's a lot of them were small, so But that's just. It was just a desire to get back to the landscape. It was a very conscious desire. It was like, I think it's time now to move into being outdoors more. And I was like, well, how do I do that? Well, okay, so how do you be a professional landscape photographer? It's not that easy if you need to earn an income. So if you go into teaching, then that's one of the the easier ways to do that. So I thought, well, I'll just start a workshop business, and so I started that in 2018, and it just did really well. I went back to the drawing board and went, well, okay, what am I going to do different? What am I going to bring differently to the table than everybody else, and why would they want to come in a workshop with me? There's loads of other people doing it. So I introduced this idea of it being maybe slower, more gentle, more open to women. I do get a lot of women photographers who feel a little bit more intimidated by the thought of spending a week with male landscape photographers, whether that's right or wrong. But sometimes these more male-dominated landscape workshops are quite intimidating. I wouldn't go on one because I'd be a bit scared of not keeping up. So that's where I thought I will go more towards. And as it's evolved again, I'm evolving it more into retreat style. So it's getting even more gentler, even more introducing these ideas of taking time out and looking at yourself and the concepts behind your photography as well. So that's all very different than a very kind of technical kind of charging around workshop that you sometimes might find.
Yeah, because sometimes you look at the itinerary for a workshop, you think, crikey, up before dawn and bed after sunset, and obviously, also sort of during the evening, there's some sort of critique going on and rushing around during the day.
Yeah.
It's usually quite an exhausting experience, I should think. If somebody comes on one of your retreats, what can they anticipate?
Well, I've just launched some real retreats. So we're introducing writing and painting and photography and creative photography. So this is a new thing for next year, actually. The sort of workshops that I have been doing, so we'll go back to those which I've been doing for the past few years. It's much more slower pace. So being much more mindful of people getting cold, but how people are feeling. Do you really want to get up at 4 o'clock and then be made to walk for 5 miles to get to the hill for sunrise? Because I don't. And thinking, well, some people aren't as able as other people. Some people don't want to be marched around. So we would maybe go out for a sunrise, but then go back in for a few hours rest, so have breakfast, have a bit of gentle time, and then go back out. So a lot of in and out, and a lot of discussion. I'd say a bit more thoughtful discussion is where I'm at. So we definitely won't be out all day. And if anybody felt cold or uncomfortable, I'd always be very much aware of that, because that's the last thing that we want. If you're going somewhere to be in the landscape, if you're cold and tired, you're not going to be creative, are you? So
no,
I think it's just a more gentle openness, I think, and definitely no climbing masses of hills. I'm all about water, and kind of we also take tea and coffee and cake on location with us, and sometimes sit and have a picnic on the beach. And that's all part of it, isn't it? That's all part of your experience. But the retreats next year are going to be very much about more open time. So rather than teaching, allowing people to have the time and space to connect themselves, which is it's a hard thing for people to do. But I think that's where you get really good results, where you've got even more gentle time, more time to do your own thing, to go off walking by yourself. To go and just sit in the landscape and write, or to just notice and take even more time.
Sounds very nice. Now, it's clear that peace and quiet and solitude are very important to you. Did it take you a long time to realise that, or have you always known that?
I think I've always known that, but I've always fought against it, because again, we come back to that thing where society thinks that we should be loud and taking part, and that entertainment's good, and being I don't know how many times I've been told to get more involved, or to speak up, or But as I learned about introversion and the strengths of introverts, and the values of being alone, and the value of being quiet and by myself, and understand the connection that when I did that, my best work would happen. So the times that I've been completely cut off for a couple of days, something has happened where I've either written something or created something that's changed things. So once I started to notice that, I do more of that. And I just think that we should, it's very hard for somebody to sit with themselves quietly. And we're in this sort of age where we don't have a few moments where everything's quiet and we're sitting with our own thoughts. I mean, if you think about the last time that you just sat there in silence, it's really quite difficult to remember that and not to be in communication. So not have your phone pinging at you and it's kind of a constant distraction. We're constantly distracted and needing entertainment now. So when we step back from that and we go into this space of being in nature and being alone, that's when your real thoughts come forward. And that's when you can start to think, well, actually, what do I love? What do I value in life? And all these things start happening. And it's easier for an introvert to do that. An extrovert naturally gains energy by being around people more. So as an introvert, it's almost easier to be, there's a high proportion of landscape photographers that are introverts. And that's because you're naturally happy to be alone in the landscape. That said, there's also great value in companionship and this sort of connection that we're doing now. That's amazing. And being in that kind of that retreat space where you're bouncing off people and you're getting ideas that are really, connecting to you and exciting. Because I get very excited when I speak to people about things I feel really strongly about. Whereas I don't want to sit and just chit chat. It's just not, that's a classic introvert thing. You just don't want to be at a party or in a pub just talking nonsense because that's a waste of time.
Right.
And that's just how I feel. But connecting deeply with people that understand and are creative, it's amazing. So there's two things going on there.
So when you're having a workshop, I'm just thinking about being introvert and liking the solitude and this, that, and the other, and then leading a workshop where you're the centre of attention for your students or clients, whatever you want to call them. How do you balance that? Is that when you are you're prepared for it and you've got something exciting to tell them and to inspire them?
Yes, it is actually the part of where I'm fine as long as people are getting it and I'm helping people and I'm able to communicate these things and these thoughts and these connections, I suppose. And they are enjoying that and embracing that. It's hard. Workshops are always going to be hard for 6 days on the go. So what I'll do is I build in 2 days completely alone time at the end of it, and then I just recharge. Then. But I'm definitely very much fulfilled as when I'm helping other people and I'm sharing these thoughts. The same thing with public speaking. A lot of people say, you're not an introvert, you're really good at speaking. And I don't mind speaking in front of a lot of people, but I've learned how to do that. That's a learned skill for me. And it's fine as long as I'm talking about something that I think somebody will be inspired by or somebody will be helped by. And it doesn't matter if it's one person. And I certainly know that when I'm talking about introversion, it helps a lot of people feel okay again, because a lot of people feel like they're inferior because they're quiet, and quiet isn't inferior. Quiet is actually very, very strong. And actually, just whilst I'm talking about that, it was Susan Cain's book, Quiet, the power of introverts in a world that can't stop speaking. That's what changed everything for me when I started learning about it. So yes, it's a balance. I have to recharge at the end of a workshop, definitely, but it's okay.
Yeah. Introversion is often mistaken for shyness and lack of confidence. That must get quite frustrating, but you're clearly, I know you said that you've had periods where you've not been confident, and I think we all do, but you don't lack confidence. You just, like you say, you don't like sitting in the pub chatting to people for hours. It's not what you do, but you're quite happy to present to people. You're happy to have a podcast.
Yeah.
You present a podcast,
Yeah, so no, definitely not shy. Definitely not unconfident, but I was. Definitely, I was before I started to understand myself, and during the times when I still felt like I was a second-class citizen because I wasn't gregarious or outgoing or the life of the party or all of those things that make you feel a little bit inferior when you're younger. when I started to learn about it and understand myself, and this whole self-awareness came coming through, then my confidence just rose with that, and with the finding the ability to talk. This has taken years to be able to talk. I'd have been so nervous talking in front of anyone. Years ago, 7 or 8 years ago, I started practicing. It's been a practice and repeat, and then gain a bit of confidence. You don't just get confidence. You have to practice something and do it well, and then feel better about it. And now I love it. Now I really enjoy talking like we're talking. I think it's great.
Oh, good. A bit of self-awareness goes a long, long way, doesn't it?
I think it's a key to your creativity in your photography and developing your photography. That's a big statement, but I think that's it. There's a quote from a lovely photographer, John Barclay from America, and he said, we bring ourselves to our work, and the more we understand ourselves, the better our work will be. And I think that is how you learn photography. You don't learn f-stops and become a great photographer. It's not relevant. You have to learn f-stops, but that's not how you become better. You become better by becoming more self-aware, more in tune with who you are, and again, this idea, coming back to what you love, what you really want to do, and standing your ground on it and just doing what you want to do. I really believe it's the biggest thing that we can work on.
Fantastic. Okay, well, I think it's probably a good point to move on to 6 from SheClicks. And I've got 10 questions from SheClicks members. I'm going to ask you to answer 6 of them, please. So could you start by picking a number from 1 to 10, please?
7.
Number 7. Okay. Does your current business and lifestyle correspond with what you visualised, say, 10 years ago? Or has it been less structured and more of a natural development? That question's from Philippa.
My business and my life now is like a dream that I had 10 years ago. Some days I wake up and I think, I'm doing this. I'm so not lucky. I'm so grateful and honoured and just happy that I'm living this life and working in this business. And it's come from hard work, but it's more than I ever wanted. So it's been amazing. And I think part of it's been a vision, and part of it's been a persistence and dedication to it, because it takes that long to get there. So I think that answered the question.
Yeah, I think so too. And you said that it was about 14 years ago that you first started thinking about moving to Harris.
That's right.
So that's a big part that's mapped across.
Yeah, 14, definitely the move. I didn't quite see the business moving over here then. And then as the years went on, I realised that the business could move and thrive here. So yeah, it's been a long time coming.
So could I have another number, please?
Number 1.
Number 1. Okay. Jane says, I'm interested in your retreats, but as a fairly outgoing person, but not loud. Will she fit in?
I'm sure she would fit in, yes. Yeah, it's not introverts only. Retreats, everybody needs to retreat. Everybody needs that time to look at. If you want to be a better photographer, go and take a retreat. Doesn't matter whether you're introvert or extrovert. I think I take retreats now, and that's one of the biggest things that I've learned is that I go on retreats, and they're not always photography retreats. They look very, very different, and it just depends on what I need in my life at that time. Who do I need in my life? What do I need in my life? Where do I need to be? And I think we need to always look at that, always, think at this point, what is it that I need? And so I went to Italy with Sean Tucker on a creative retreat last year, and I didn't take my camera. So, that was like, I ended up writing, and that's been amazing. That's been pivotal in my development. And all these things that I've done over the years, I think they're all to do with what do you need at the time? Who do you need to be around? Who do you want to be around? Who's going to show you the way and uplift you and guide you? And I think it's really important to think of things like that. And I'm going off topic there a little bit, but I don't think it matters whether you don't have to be an introvert to go on a retreat. Definitely extroverts go on retreats as well, and completely fine.
Good news, Jane. There you go. Yeah, and Sean Tucker, he's a really interesting, thought-provoking guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
So I imagine that was an enjoyable retreat.
Yeah, that was amazing. Yes. Recommended.
So you've had numbers 1 and 7. Could I have another number, please?
3.
Number 3. You use slow shutter speed quite a lot for your work. Does the process of making these images, i.e. the fact that it takes longer,
Yeah.
help you feel the mood that you're wanting in the image? That question's from Janina.
Yeah, probably. It probably does, actually. And it gives that kind of, I think the main thing for me is that it gives a more artistic look to the image. So I've come from a background of painting and that kind of, creativity. So I think that's, and it also gives that kind of soft and gentle look as well. So it's painterly, but it's soft and gentle. And then if you sort of look at me as a person, I'm not kind of, so here we go. We're going to look at somebody and think, well, what does their photography look like them? And I hope it does a little bit. That's a bit strange, isn't it? Do I look like a wave? But do I look? Am I soft and am I gentle? Am I quiet? Am I slow? Yes, all of those things. So I'm kind of matching that. So if you think about somebody that's got like a louder, the colours are harsher, or brighter, really bright colours, and everything's in focus and everything's a bit more kind of like wide angle and sort of geometric, and that's going to fit a different type of person. So the slow shutter is definitely it wasn't consciously picked. I've just done it naturally. Again, I've just allowed that natural instinct to come through. So so I think that answered that question too.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Are you aware of 100 for the Ocean, which was a print sale for ocean conservation that was set up by Christina Mittermeier and her partner? And 100 photographers donated images that were printed, and then people could buy them for, I can't remember, I think it started at $100 for an A4 print, and you could buy A3 prints. And what I found really interesting is, I put on SheClicks, and lots of people were selecting the images they wanted to buy because there's some fantastic work there. And normally you'd expect to be paying thousands of dollars for these images rather than 100. And what was really interesting was to see which images people selected. And there was some I actually commented, oh, that's very you. And, you do maybe it's the type of images she creates, or the type of person, but you could see that you understood that why they would have been attracted to that image.
Ah, yes, it works both ways. That's interesting, that, isn't it? That it works. You also select the sort of images that feel more like you, don't you? That's really interesting.
Yeah. Okay, so can we have a fourth number, please?
Number 10.
Number 10. Oh, in a recent podcast, you said that you need to photograph somewhere for 10 years before you really start to get somewhere with it. So how do you keep it fresh during those 10 years?
I always wonder about some of the things that I say on my podcast, that will I ever get picked up on something that I say that's like absolute nonsense or something. That's a good one. I like that. They've been listening to our podcast. I think that was in relation to. I believe that the more that you photograph a place, the more that you become deeper connected to it. So the more powerful the images become. So when we're trotting around the world photographing images, you're never going to get that real deep connection. You're never going to really know and understand that land. And for me, that's really, really important. It might not be important for everybody, but definitely for me, it's something that I feel like the more that I photograph Harris, the more that I understand it, the more that I love it, the more powerful the images become. But quite rightly, you then have to start going, actually, I've done that. How do I do this different? And for me, that's been really interesting, because what I've done recently is I've said, well, how else can I photograph Harris? I've been photographing from the beach, and I've been doing this slow shutter speed, and they're lovely. I love them, but what's new? So I started getting in the water about 4 years ago, and I started photographing in the water and seeing the land from in the water and under the water. I've just had an exhibition actually with my underwater images, and that's been so much fun. And I wouldn't have done that. I don't think I hadn't been here for that long photographing, and hadn't thought, well, I need to do something and develop. And then after this, I'm starting to think, well, what else can I do? Where else can I go with this? And it keeps you fresh. It keeps you on your toes, because you do have to keep moving, because otherwise it does get a little bit tedious.
Do you find that you get more picky about the weather conditions in which you're going to take photographs?
Yeah, very much so. I suppose because I'm here now all the time. Like if you came over for a week, you just want to make the most of it, don't you? So you're going to go out at every opportunity. But now that I'm here all the time, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, it's not quite right. I think I'll just stay home. So this is a great opportunity to say that, to say, oh, we'll really wait until the weather's absolutely right before I'm going out. So I guess that's evolving as well and developing as a photographer.
I think so. Okay, your penultimate number, please.
Oh, number 9.
Number 9. Oh, so what's in the pipeline? Philippa says she's seen your business grow over the last few years and wonder whether there are more plans that we don't know about yet.
There's always more plans.
Or are they secret?
Yeah. No, I'm kind of realizing this about myself, that I like creating new things, and I created the festival a couple of years ago, and we've been doing that for 2 years. So that's gonna. I don't know whether I think that's going to evolve, and I think there probably will be more evolving happening for me. I'm starting to paint, and I am writing a book at the moment. So those are the 2 things.
Okay.
Whether they are a direct impact on my business and what I offer, I don't know. But there's certainly different strands that are coming from the photography and coming from the life of a creative, I suppose. So it starts with the photography. But I definitely like new challenges, should we say. I like new challenges. I don't like kind of just, going along. So I don't know, actually. I'm taking a good look at my life, and I think what's really important is to take a good look at it and say, well, how am I living? Am I how healthy am I? How happy am I? How much time do I have, and how much do I need? So it's probably at the moment this year's a period of adjustment to having moved here, and there is a little bit of a plan in the pipeline to build a little studio in the garden. So that's probably the next thing to concentrate on. That's probably enough, isn't it? It's probably enough to concentrate on.
It's quite a few things. I think anyone who types your name into Google, or perhaps another search engine, will soon find out that you are quite a busy person. You do quite a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I do, and I don't always realise that. Sometimes think, I'm not doing enough, which is ridiculous.
I must do more.
Yes.
But what sort of book is it? Is it a novel? Is it about photography, autobiography? What can we expect?
No, it's a memoir, which is not an autobiography, because I think an autobiography is when you get to nearer the end of your life, and it's a whole. I don't know what. Actually, we should Google that before I say that. But a memoir is, it's about my life, but about my life and the sea and creativity and wellness. So all of those things put together. I've only just started writing it. It's very difficult because I'm not a writer, so I'm learning to write, but I'm loving the challenge.
Oh, great! I hope there's an audio version as well.
Oh, maybe. To write it first.
Something else for you to do, I suppose.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Okay, so your final number then, please.
Number 8.
Do you still swim all year round?
Yes, I do, even more so now that I'm here. So one of the things that I decided to do when I got here was to swim every day if I can. And I have been doing, actually, most days I managed to get in the water. And it's been really nice because it's summer at the moment. So it's just the sea here is just glorious. It's like a turquoise bath at the moment. Well, it's a little bit colder than a bath, but it's just beautiful, and it just feels amazing. And because I've been doing this in water photography, there's kind of dual purpose. So sometimes I'm with cameras, sometimes I'm just in swimming because it makes me feel better. But I will carry it on, and I will go through the winter, definitely. Because it's just so good for you, and it's one of the props for my well-being. Definitely feel better after doing it. So if anybody does it, they know what I'm talking about, and if they don't, give it a whirl, because it does help. It does help enormously with a range of things, from mental wellness to physical well-being. So that's what I do. It's sometimes painful. I don't want to get in. I don't always want to get in. I'm like looking at it going on. But when I get out, I feel amazing. So I'm gonna carry on doing that. Absolutely. Yeah.
I do know what you're talking about, because I absolutely love being in the sea, but I'm the sort of person who wears a winter wetsuit in the summer because I am such a wuss.
Okay.
When it comes to the cold, I just don't like being cold. Tell me you wear a wetsuit all year.
No, I won't wear a wetsuit. I don't wear a wetsuit at all.
In Scotland? Wow.
Yeah, no, I don't wear a wetsuit at all.
Good grief.
Unless I am photographing. And from photographing, I'm quite static for a long time, so I can be in for a long time kind of not moving, and that's not good. But if I am just in for myself, I'm just in a swim cushion, because you get the most dramatic effect when you're just in the swim cushion. There's something about it being on the that's the cold. You need the cold, and it's the skin, the cold on the skin that really gives you that kind of cold water boost almost. So it can be quite painful. And it's not always swimming. It's sometimes just standing or lying. So we'll saying wild swimming, we'll take the swimming out of that and just kind of being.
Or bob, wild bobbing.
Like it.
Well, Margaret, it's been absolutely wonderful hearing from you. Thank you so much for joining me today on the podcast.
That's all right. It was lovely talking to you. We'll see you later.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the SheClicks Women in Photography podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. You'll find links to Margaret's social media channels, website and podcast in the show notes. I'll be back with another episode soon, so please subscribe to the show on your favourite podcast platform and tell all your friends and followers about it. You'll also find SheClicks on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram and YouTube if you search for SheClicks Net. So until next time, enjoy your photography.